Well, good evening, everybody. Benedetta, hello. How we doing?
Good.
All right. We took 2 days and we went to a very famous site. Do you want to elucidate?
Well, we went to Sleepy Hollow in New York, near New York City.
We went to Tarrytown and Sleepy Hollow.
Tarrytown.
Right? So
Yes.
not Tarrytown, but Tarrytown. So we saw the Headless Horseman statue.
Well, it's sculpture, really.
Sculpture, right. We saw the old Dutch church. We saw Washington Irving's gravesite.
Mm-hmm.
We saw the old bridge where Ichabod Crane was chased.
Yes, and then we also saw Andrew Carnegie, or Carnegie, if you want to be precise. We saw his grave. It was a grave. And then the mausoleum of
William Rockefeller.
Yeah.
So quite a few, and Leona Helmsley's.
Well, we didn't take the time to go to that
mausoleum.
We saw it from a distance.
Right. So that was actually very interesting. So Demos, you've seen Disney's Ichabod Crane, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow.
Yeah, I read the original story. I've seen the Disney version from '49 and Tim Burton. There was a Tim Burton version. Well, a lot of people don't.
Yeah, we did see the Tim Burton version. Yeah.
Well, a lot of people don't realize is that Sleepy Hollow is a real place.
Oh, okay, all right.
Tend to think, it's like one of those,
kind of,
fictional, Halloween type, towns made for it. But it's quite fun. I mean, the bridge, it's not the original bridge. I've been there myself before. It's a replica, but it's still a lot of fun to go check out.
It's a beautiful cemetery.
Yeah, and this is the right time to see it during the fall. It's gorgeous.
Yep. And we went Monday, Tuesday, so there weren't any crowds. I mean, I know they've got a lot of events and stuff going on, but it was nice. So then on the way back, and again, we won't spend too much time on this, but I thought it's an interesting conversation that may continue with the evening show. Oh, by the way, I do want to say thank you very, very much. A lot of our listeners texted me and emailed me and asked me, how Terry's brother and wife were doing, how my mom and my sister were doing. So the answer to all of those questions is that everybody is safe and sound. My mom and my sister have power. They stayed together in my sister's house, so everything is good with that. So
just to point out for those who missed it, they were on the coast of Florida. So Hurricane Milton hit
the Gulf Coast.
They were on the Gulf Coast, and they were only 4 miles inland, so they were kind of very close.
That's. But I heard that apparently it was, it's of all the paths it could have taken, it took potentially the least destructive path through Florida.
Well, that's kind of what I see. I mean, there was obviously some there were some deaths. I think there was four deaths due to the tornadoes, not necessarily the storm, but due to the tornadoes. But again, thank you everybody for your prayers and for reaching out to us, and also a couple of offers. Please, if they need help, we'll go and check on them. If they don't answer the telephone, we'll go there and check. So we really appreciate all of that. So.
Yeah, and we were also thankful that the hurricane took the path it did, that it didn't hit, because it was showing these fake videos of Disney World being flooded.
Yeah, those AI generated videos with the Cinderella castle all looking beautiful with its lights on, with 30 feet of water.
Yeah, but they have Animal Kingdom there, and so I don't know all those animals.
Well, Busch Gardens is in Tampa. I don't know what the state of Busch Gardens is in at the moment, but I did hear that. I think that they evacuated some of the animals. I'm not sure about that.
Okay, hopefully.
So anyway, so that was so again, thanks for that. Anything else?
There is a big one. It's in the title of this video. 18,000 subscribers.
Oh, yes. So we are at 18,000. So that is like well beyond what we had imagined. I mean, remember we were getting excited over we've got 20 we've got 100, and so we were just
Yeah, we
all
never
excited.
expected
Yeah.
these many subscribers, but I think you're going to celebrate it by only getting up and down 18,000 times.
Oh, yes, there we go. I'll just, yeah, that'll be my exercise program.
For the 20,000 special, we'll do a timer of every single time you've gotten up.
Oh, yes, that's right. A little timer on the wall. But
No.
remember, this is in no way about subscribers. That's not why we're here. Why we're here is the fact that we know how important it is to have a resource where we can, or a forum that you can ask questions that you wouldn't normally have an opportunity to ask. A lot of people, we realize, and I now as a priest, I realize, and even growing up, that we didn't really have the courage to go and ask the priest because that's a stupid question, or why would you ask that, or that's a heretical question, or nobody in their Christian mind asks a question like that. So we wanted to be that resource. So it was never about numbers, but the numbers show that you all appreciate the fact that we're providing an opportunity, and remember, as I said, the questions that you ask help me to learn more about the Orthodox faith. A lot of the small details that we don't cover in seminary. So just as much as there's a lot of theological questions, there's also a lot of questions that are just why do you do that? And that involves some research. So again, thanks a lot, and I'm done.
I want to add one more thing to the list. I think it's and this might be a big one for a lot of people. It's the "you should have known" question. All these I don't have a problem going up and asking whatever, but that's just me. But I think for a lot of people, because I've had a lot of adults either email me or pull me aside watching our Sunday school videos and saying, "You answered a question that I've always wanted to ask, but I'm afraid because I should have known."
I should have known that.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
And by the way, those virtual Sunday schools are coming back later this month, and we're going to have something particularly special to begin with.
Ooh, all right.
All right.
So, do we have any questions?
We have a few.
A few. Okay, let's see if we've got a few questions that we might be able to answer.
All right. From Costa, he says, "Hi. I noticed the title of Sunday's live stream. Will there be explanations during the Divine Liturgy live?"
Yes, there will be. And in fact, if you go to our website under the events page, there'll be a link there that will allow you to download the text of the teaching liturgy. So it might be difficult to capture everything. So I've prepared a working document that you can have in front of you, and that as I'm going through this, I might not cover every single detail, but at least you'll have the complete text and you can follow along. So go ahead and do that.
Actually, if I may add two things, that text will be linked to the description of both of those services.
Oh, okay.
And then within a couple of weeks after both teaching liturgies air, we will be releasing a complete version right here on YouTube, so you can watch the whole thing in one go.
No, absolutely. It's something that I started in my first parish, just because people asked me and said, "I don't know really anything about the liturgy. Can you explain it?" And I thought, well, what's the form to explain it in the most that would allow for the most coverage? And that's why I learned from one of my other priest friends, and he did something called a teaching liturgy, and I'm like, I don't know what that is. And he helped me put that together, and here we are.
All right. They're always well received when you do them.
Oh.
We'll enjoy them.
Okay. All right.
All right. Our next question is from Don Javarji. Congratulations on 18,000.
Thank you.
And his question is, and I have it here, why did Apostle Paul say men ought not to cover their head in Corinthians 11:07 when the high priest does? Why do, we'll stop there and then I'll.
That's 1 Corinthians?
1 Corinthians 11:07.
Yeah. Corinthians 11:7.
Mm-hmm.
For a man indeed ought not to cover his head, since he is the image and glory of God, but the woman is the glory of man. Man's okay. I was just looking for the commentary here in the Orthodox Study Bible. So the question is specifically again about what is it about 7?
Why did Apostle Paul say men ought not cover their head when high priest does?
Oh, and I did have the answer to this at one time, and that's why I was hoping it was. I was hoping that I had got it from here. So I don't have that answer right now.
Okay,
that was an answer that
we'll add that to your homework.
And like I said, at the one time I did have that. So I will get that answer for you.
Okay.
Orthodoxy questions answered later.
Later. Oh my goodness.
And the second part of the question is, why do Jewish men cover their heads with the kippah? If I'm saying that correctly, I don't know where the accent goes. If men ought not to.
So,
Well, is that specifically in the New Testament? Does that show up in the Old Testament about men not covering their heads?
I believe that there is a reference there to in the Old Testament, but what I'd wanted to do, there's one other book that I can go to for reference there. And again, that is, you said 11.
1 Corinthians 11:7.
1 Corinthians 11.
7.
And just to point out, do not close from Corinthians, because there's a question further down about Corinthians.
So again, next to the Orthodox Study Bible, which provides an Orthodox commentary, one of the other commentaries that we used when we were in seminary was the New Jerome Commentary. And so here we have, and 7, with reference to a man ought not to bind up his head. This would be, now at the time, they're saying that this would be unmasculine. Humanity has lost the glory of God through the fall. Paul here is invoking the pristine state of humanity in the Jewish tradition with which Paul was very familiar. The woman was also the image and the glory of God. But Paul does not say that here. He had a formula that underlined the differences between the sexes and the idea that woman gave glory to man. So here what he's saying is Paul is making a reference back to what our original state was, what it is that we lost through the fall. Well, I just wanted to see. So I wanted to provide some type of commentary on that, and so what I can do is, there is some other Orthodox commentary on that, but I just don't have it available for right now. But I wanted to at least start with that.
All right. Cooking with Bebug says, good evening to all of us here. How does the Orthodox understanding of the harrowing of hell, as referenced in 1 Peter and Ephesians, how does it explain Christ's victory over death and the liberation of the righteous? So 1 Peter chapter 3, verses 18 through 20.
In fact, we were just talking about this question today. So we have to connect 1 Peter, and if I'm just getting it available here, that's somewhere in the back.
We need to get a fourth person here whose entire job is just getting those Bible verses ready.
Yes, I kind of was talking about that with him earlier today. Something along those lines.
We need the researcher and page turner. So we need one more to be added to this group. All right. Okay. So it's 1 Peter and 3, right?
We need to get you the little stickies on the page edges that all good Protestants put on their Bibles, and you can find the chapter books.
Yes. Okay, and so it was what did Bebug say? It was
1 Peter 3, 18 through 20.
Okay. For Christ also suffered once for sins, the just for the unjust, that he might bring us to God. Okay, and again, like we have said on this show, is that is that rather than atonement and expiation theology, which is Protestant in nature, Orthodox theology is that God the Father sends his only begotten Son to reestablish the broken bond that happened after the fall. And so the intermediary solution to that, or the covenant, was the Torah. But the ultimate bringing us and reconnecting us with God is Christ. And that was for the just and the unjust, that he might bring us to God and put to death in the flesh and made alive in the spirit, by whom also he went and preached to the spirits in prison who were formerly disobedient. Now, what is he referring to? What he's referring to is Matthew 27. And Matthew 27, Matthew 27, 51, 53. Behold, now this is again, Jesus dies, right? And behold, Jesus yielded up his spirit, the veil of the temple was torn in two, and the earth quaked, the rocks were split, and the graves were opened, and many of the bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised up, and coming out of the graves after his resurrection, they went into the holy city and appeared to many. Okay, so Peter is making that connection because, and how do we know that? So he went and preached to the spirits in prison who were formerly disobedient, waited in the days of Noah. So what these saints are, that the bodies of the saints, these are the saints of Israel. So these would be the prophets and the great men of Israel who now, Jesus in his first resurrection, okay, which he proceeded to Hades to recover, and he brought the word and the freedom from death to them first. And so that's the reference here, is back to Matthew. Peter is referring back to Matthew and saying that those saints would be representative of those saints that would be recognized by the people in Jerusalem at the time. Certainly, certainly Elijah, Elisha. I'm not saying that those were the saints, but they would recognize who those people were.
Well, and probably the Elijah's like the one example that wouldn't be, because didn't he go directly to heaven?
Yes, but he also appeared at the Transfiguration. Yes, together with Moses and right. So he would not be one that would appear. Sorry, good catch there. Right.
It's hilarious cooking with Biba, because we had a meeting today planning a video on this topic.
Yes.
All right. And then we have greetings from Yanni. He is in class.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
And again, Yanni is one of the ones that reached out and asked how our families were doing. So again, Yanni, thank you very much for that.
Yes, he says, united in prayers for your families and those affected by Hurricane Milton. The next question is from Marcelo. How does the Orthodox Church reconcile God's unchanging nature with scriptures like Exodus 32:14 and Jonah 3:10, where God appears to change his mind in response to human actions?
Oh, not just that. I mean, you can even think about Abraham and Blackstone's ratio. What if there are 50 good men? What if there are 30 good men? What if there are 10 good men? That's an example, quote unquote, of God changing his mind.
Well, okay. So in the divine liturgy, we talk about God as uncircumscribed, incomprehensible, okay, and unchanging. But when we're talking about that, we're talking about unchanging in the nature of who he is. So that means that he is all merciful, okay? And in that, we see that God can be moved through the example that Demos just gave, and then the other examples that you pointed out, that God can be moved to mercy. That doesn't change his nature. His unchangeable nature is his all goodness. He is infinitely merciful, and he is beyond understanding. Those are his unchanging characteristics. But within that, he can be moved to mercy because he's all merciful. So there was something that he was going to do but he can be moved to mercy. So that the unchanging aspect of that is his mercy.
Okay. From Laconia, in regards to cremation not being allowed, what happens to those people consumed by animals, or those who are blown to pieces, or those who get nuked and turned to dust? A rotting corpse is the temple of the Holy Spirit. From dust you came, from dust you will return. Not provoking a fight, just asking questions respectfully.
Oh no, I think that's a great question. And the first example that comes up about animals is the saints, right? I mean, the saints were devout. Many of them, that was their torture. They were brought into the Colosseum so that they could be they could be eaten by animals. Okay, and what the Christians did is they recovered the parts that they could, and they offered them a respectable burial. Okay, so and we know that those saints have received their crowns, and that they abide in heaven. Okay, so the point is that was not an action that they undertook. Well, I was going to say that's not an action they undertook willingly, but they willingly went into the Colosseum knowing what was going to happen. All right. But it wasn't their desire to be eaten by an animal, but they resigned themselves to the faith, knowing that eternal life is what we are seeking and not this life. As far as other people who were destroyed in a bomb or they die in a car fire, those are acts that are beyond the control of the person. They were not within the will of the person. So when we talk about cremation, the overriding principle there is that the person has made a willful decision to decide how his body will be disposed of. Okay, the saints did not choose the animal. They said, well, you know what? I want to be eaten by animals. This is what the punishment was. They were going to die, and so they willingly accepted their death. But they did not accept that form of death. But somebody that does say, this is how I want to die, I'm going to take control over my body, that's where it becomes problematic for the church.
Well, the reason they asked the question was they commented, the thought of being buried in a coffin scares the heck out of me, but grinding your bones to dust sounds worse. And
Yes.
then they added, if I could ascend to heaven like Elijah, that would be great.
That would be great. I mean, I would not like to be tortured. That's not something that's on my bucket list. All right. So I share those same fears. That was when we got to the core of it. That was my father's reason really for wanting to be cremated. Is he says, I don't want to be buried in the ground. I don't want to be eaten by worms. And I tried to tell him, Dad, you're not going to know. Okay, that's not where you are. Okay, but there was really nothing I could do about that. So in the end, I was finally able to appeal to his
Orthodox sensibilities?
No, not even that. I told him that.
I give him some credit.
Well, I'm trying to be honest here because there's other people that that have this issue. What appealed to him is his father-son relation. I told him that I would take absolutely no part in his funeral whatsoever, and that got him more mad than the Orthodox part.
Yeah, he did not like that.
He did not like that at all.
All right. If we have that, remind me of that thing we saw today, one of the YouTube things. If we have time later on, we'll talk about.
Okay.
Our next question comes from someone here whose name I can't read their handle, whatever that's called. Miss, I don't know.
Panda. We'll go with Panda.
Okay, Panda. Ms. Panda. Who created the tradition of kissing the icons? Did the first generation apostle teach that?
So we don't have, and I'm just checking right now just to be sure. Text. So the earliest rubrics that we have is the 2nd century Didache, which is the teaching of the 12 apostles. Okay. and it talks about things like how baptism should be done, how the common meal should be done, how Holy Communion should be done. It talks about fasting and the Lord's Prayer. But what I'm looking in here for is there was some iconography at the time. I mean, not the way that we see it today. Just to see if that's where it actually started. And just looking through it very quickly, the teachings, baptism, and ways of death. Double-tongued. You shall not. You shall not murder a child by abortion. You shall not covet your neighbor. So no, I was thinking that maybe there would be some reference to the second commandment about thou shalt not make any graven images. So we don't have that in the Didache. So I would probably say that somewhere around probably around the 4th century, when iconography becomes very prominent, that we have the beginnings of people wanting to pay reverence to the saint or the event being depicted, and that custom of how to show reverence. One of the ways that we typically do show reverence is that we offer a kiss. Okay, in church that would certainly be the kiss of peace, but here we're offering it in reverence to the image that is being depicted.
All right. Very good. Our next one, is greetings from Diane. Warm, windy greetings from the new tornado zone. Glory to God in the highest. Yes. That they had quite a few tornadoes there yesterday.
Well, isn't Florida unofficially part of Tornado Alley? I remember reading something about that.
Well,
they get a lot.
Yeah.
Diane sent me a couple of interesting of some videos of cars stopped on a highway watching other cars being lifted up into the air by the tornado. So it was pretty.
And Florida has tornadoes on land and then water spouts,
yes.
So you get them everywhere there.
Florida's not that fun of a place to be sometimes.
All right, from PF Stats, Matthew 5, verse 34 through 37. To not swear an oath on the Bible, even in court? Why not? But I tell you, do not swear an oath, either by heaven, for it is God's throne.
So when they talk about swearing the oath, what they're talking about is swearing an oath that would be to that would commit you to a living person. Okay, so it was popular in ancient times that as a soldier or a civil official, you would swear an oath of allegiance and worship to a living being, whether it be a Caesar or a Pharaoh or whoever that was. Okay, and that's what we're referring to here. The oaths that you're giving there are just saying that in the name of God, I am telling the truth. You're not swearing an oath to the judge, and you're worshiping him. So a very different concept there. So this was do not swear an oath of allegiance or worship to a living individual, because that is reserved only for God.
All right. And then another verse, Peter 3, verse 3 and 4 says not to put on jewelry. I wear jewelry. I think a lot of people do. Is there some reason why?
So that's just, did it say like 1 Peter or just, he just said Peter, right?
Peter.
So let's go with 1 Peter.
All right.
Start there.
And we have, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, while you're looking that up, Linda G has greetings from Michigan.
Oh, Michigan. Lived there for, we lived there twice for a total of 30, almost 30 years. So
it's kind of crazy every Sunday, because that seems to be a tradition when we do the live services on Sunday, people come in and they tell us where they're from. But we've gotten, I you know, if we ever do upgrade the studio, I'm gonna have a map behind you guys with a pinpoint for all the places that people have said they've watched from, because it is
it's
very
pretty
international.
Yes.
So this might be more of, and I'm just I'm looking up because I want to see how it's written, and we're going to go to NIV, and that is 1 Peter 3. Okay, and it's 3:3, right?
3:3 to 4. So 3:3 and 3:4. And if this turns out to be the case, I know there'll be a lot of husbands celebrating not having to buy any bracelets or diamonds.
Yes, and so I think that I'm going to disappoint the male members of the audience here. All right, 3.
Oh, there's some males who wear a lot of, what do they call, bling?
Yes. Is that 1 Peter? Yes.
Right. Okay, and 3. So if we read in 1 Peter in the NIV in verse 3 of 1 Peter, your beauty should not come from outward adornment such as elaborate hairstyles and the wearing of gold jewelry or fine clothes. Rather, it should come from the inner self. Okay, if we take a look at the Greek, and we have here in verse 3, on esto o exodon emblokis, so jewelry, so exodon, external, so here on esto o exodon can be translated better as do not let your adornment be merely outward. So the Greek is saying you can wear jewelry, but not in a manner that you are showing it off. And that was very popular for the time, certainly within Roman culture and Egyptian culture, for women to be very elaborately decorated. So Peter here is referring to having a much more humble appearance. So he's not saying you can't wear the jewelry, but what he's saying is don't let your adornment be merely something that's outward, jewelry, hairdo, how I look, but adorn yourself rather with the person of the heart. So in that sense, I'm sorry, but the best I can tell you is if she asks for really fancy jewelry, you can tell her, well, Peter actually wants us to get something a little bit more subdued.
Well, good luck with that.
Okay, all right. Hey, guys, I'm trying.
You do marital counseling, right?
Yeah.
All right.
40-year marriage counseling is different from 5-year marriage counseling.
All right. And then Diane says, well, since everybody wants to discuss scripture, how about Corinthians 15:10?
Oh, Lord, you're really...
Well, I had it open for you, and I have it here.
I told you not to close Corinthians.
1 Corinthians
15:10.
15:10.
While you're looking it up, I will read it. But by the grace of God, I am what I am, and his grace toward me was not in vain. On the contrary, I worked harder than any of them, though it was not I, but the grace of God which is with me.
Okay, so what's the question?
She wants to talk about it.
No.
Comments. How would you...
So here... within chapter 15, okay, if you read earlier there, it talks about, I declare to you the gospel which I preached to you, which you also received, for I was delivered to you first of all that which I received, and then for I am the least of the apostles who am not worthy to be called, but because I was persecuted by the church. And then in other places he talks about how I received whips and lashes, and that I have suffered for the faith. So what he's saying here is yes, I know what it's like to be a follower of Christ. I have endured the whips and the whipping and the tortures and the comments and all that. But I am not proud of that. I am proud because it is the grace of God that I am demonstrating. So my strength does not come from me standing up to torture. My strength comes from the fact that I recognize that without God, I would not be able to endure any of these. And without God, there would be no purpose to enduring any of this. So yet not I, but the grace of God which was with me. And so this is Paul telling us that our strength doesn't come from us. So we shouldn't do all of these heroic things and think, look at what a great person I am and how strong I am. But it is by the grace of God that we are granted that strength.
Okay. Aaron says, hi, everyone. Considering what's happening in Florida right now, what would be the best response to those who ask, why does God allow such disasters to occur?
Well, the first and foremost answer is that we live in a fallen world which has disease and death. Okay, and that's the first answer. All right. So this is not something that God has said, you know what, I'm going to whip up a hurricane today because some people need to die. All right. So we do live in a fallen world which has suffering and death. Okay, and we have been given Jesus Christ as the only begotten Son of God, who offers us a way to understand that suffering that does not come from God, but comes from a fallen world. And again, we do have in this fallen world natural catastrophes, mudslides, fires, earthquakes. So those are natural phenomenon that occur, all right? But then again, we choose to put ourselves many times in harm's way. I mean, people do live on the beach, okay? And people do live in areas where they are susceptible to mudslides or earthquakes. But people decide that's what they're going to do. But then when it happens to them, then they say, well, God brought this suffering upon me. No, you moved into an area that is a known hazard area. Okay, so with that comes some responsibility.
But is there any place on earth you can go where you're not going to be in direct path of any kind of hazard?
Yeah, Rochester.
Yeah, have you looked at the crime rates, my friend?
Okay, but yeah, I mean,
you're talking natural disasters.
Yeah, I was talking. Okay, on natural disasters. Okay, fine. We get snow, but I mean, many times, on TV, we're watching, areas and homes sliding into the sea. Okay, but that was a known risk going in. Okay.
Well, I don't know. Just you say that because I think about tornadoes, for instance. I mean, even Rochester, we had an F3. I think a couple of decades ago. I mean, I'm thinking anywhere you go in the world,
and you're going to have
can be a natural disaster. A meteor might hit us from space.
That's okay. And these are things that exist in the natural world. But to blame them on God and say, well, God directed the tornado to me rather than my neighbor is nonsensical. I mean, this is contrary to how Scripture is written. Because if we look throughout the Old Testament and the New Testament, what we find is a God that is very devoted to his people. Okay, do we find killing in the Bible? Yes, of course we find killing in the Bible. All right, but we also find a God of mercy who has protected and continuously cares for his people even when they turn away. So we want to be careful to not think of God in a Zeus kind of way where he's bored and so he just needs like Clash of the Titans where he moves pieces on the board, right?
All right. Evelyn Bunt says, I am a catechumen who hasn't had my life confession yet. I constantly carry immense guilt and shame for my sins, past and present. How can I reconcile with this guilt until I'm able to confess?
Well, now she said she's Catholic, right?
She did not say. She's a catechumen.
She's a catechumen. I thought she says I was a Catholic and a Catholic.
So I'm assuming Orthodox.
Okay. So just because you haven't entered the Orthodox Church does not mean that you can't also go to the priest as he gets to know you and you become comfortable with him through your catechetical process, that you can say, there's some things I'd like to talk to you about. Now, again, as you've probably heard me say in many, many episodes, all right, the act of confession requires both confidence in the priest of his willingness to maintain confidentiality, and also that he will treat you in a merciful and non-judgmental and compassionate manner. Okay? And this sometimes will take time to find that right person. So not every priest fits every person. That's why we have different priests, because we have different people. All right? And it was the same with me. I don't confess to every priest that I see because there are certain priests that understand me better and I'm much more comfortable with. All right. So part of your catechetical process is to determine whether or not this is the priest that you would be comfortable confessing to. So you can still confess to that priest. It's just that he can't do the prayer of absolution. But that doesn't mean that he can't listen to and guide you and offer spiritual help to the issues that you're facing, and also how to help you deal with guilt in an Orthodox manner. So don't feel that, I got to wait to become Orthodox before I can talk about some of these things. But what I'm saying is make sure that you are comfortable in the priest's confidentiality and you are comfortable in his compassionate and non-judgmental style.
All right. Maria Laganis asks, what is your opinion that all religions are paths to God?
Well, okay. So remember, the Orthodox answer to that, the way we learned it in seminary, is that the sure path to salvation is through Christ. So it is a Trinitarian faith that we understand the fullness of who God is. Then the church will say, we understand that there are other religions, okay, and we can't say, we will not say that the Holy Spirit does not extend where it will. So we don't know what those paths are. So the church will not say there are many paths to God. They will say, the Orthodox Church will say that there is an assured path to God, all right? But, and the example that I'm going to use here is the Jewish faith. The Jews have always been the favored people of God. So for us as Orthodox to say, well, they don't believe in Jesus as the Son of God, therefore they're going to hell and nothing's they're not part of God's plan. The Orthodox Church would never say that because they have been the favored nation of God throughout history. So that's why it's a very cautious answer. And where we will put our stress on is that the fullness of the faith, that is the revelation of who God is in the Orthodox Church. But we will never say that we would never make a commentary that says all other faiths have no path to God.
All right. Marie has another question, but I'm going to skip it for just a minute and go down to the next one because it ties into this question. From WS, explain how the patriarch says that all religions have the same God. Do Hindus with the multiple God, or Satanists, or the Archbishop says many paths to God, which Christ isn't the only way?
Well, Christ is the only way. All right, we have to start there. Christ is the only way. But God and Christ, the Son of God, Christ, is the final judge. Now, there's some confusion there in terms of what we hear in Scripture, because we hear him say, "I do not judge, but then I am judged." The way the Orthodox Church interprets that is Christ came to earth not to judge immediately, not to judge at this time, to tell us who he is and that he provides eternal salvation. But I will be the judge at the second coming. So this is how we can understand that confusion, because people will say to me, well, he says, I don't judge and then judge. When he came, he did not come to judge. That's the second coming. He came to give us the path to eternal salvation. All right. So that's first we have to understand that. So in that sense, all will kneel before Christ. There's nothing that we can what's the word I'm looking for? Not sugarcoat, but we can't play around with that. That is what Christ says, that he will be there at that he is that final judge. Now, as far as he says, the patriarch and the
says that all religions have the same God. So do Hindus, because they have multiple gods, or Satanists?
Yes. So I'd actually have to see that quote before I make a commentary. That sounds like that might be taken out of context, because I don't see him saying that, because Buddhism is not God, right? It's enlightenment. Okay, so we can't say that Buddhism leads to heaven, all right? So I think there might be a misunderstanding of what the patriarch said, so I'd need to see that quote in particular to read it in its full context.
All right. Okay. I'm going to go back up to Maria's second part, and Maria had asked, was Jesus in heaven with God prior to his human birth?
Oh, here, I'll give you the answer. I'll give you the answer directly. John gives us the answer to that extremely clearly. In the beginning was the Word, the Logos, who is Christ, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God, and all things were made through him. So John tells us in the opening preface of his gospel that Christ existed from the beginning and is God and was with God in the beginning.
Okay. Costa commented that he saw a video of a priest doing a paraklesis on the beach as the storm was approaching, and it changed paths afterwards in Tarpon Springs.
Wow. I wonder if that was Father Athanasios.
Yeah, I don't
I could
know.
see Father Athanasios at Howard Beach doing a paraklesis service. I don't doubt it for a second.
All right. Athenite asks, prayer corner candles, are battery powered okay, or wax only?
For their prayer corner.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me put it this way. The preferred method is the flame. Okay. But if there is a danger that, to setting the house on fire, then yes, an electric candle will work fine. I mean, because we're not worshiping the candle, we are worshiping the image of Christ. Again, we're not worshiping the icon, right? To be clear on that. Okay. But worship is not the candle. So it doesn't matter if the candle is a flame. It should be preferably a flame, but if it cannot be, then electric little flicker thing, that'll work fine.
Well, because some apartment complexes do not allow candles.
Oh, open flame. Yeah, right. That is correct.
All right, real quick. Mary Christine says, hello, hope you're all having a wonderful week. Thank you for being here. And Joe Paddington says, wow, 18K.
Yes,
of course,
yes.
With multiple exclamation points, but I don't want to blow out the microphone.
Yes.
And Patty also says, congrats.
Yeah, we've got, man, you guys are working me on the Bible today. Usually we just have, every once in a while, I get at least a couple of softballs to give me a rest, but you guys are killing me tonight.
Like waffles or pancakes?
Yeah.
Our next question is from Cha Sa. The question is, I heard to remove curses, it's temporary if it be by a priest or by reading, it says, or by reading it daily. Yet how come when doing that still things are bad? And then others say they get results from fortune tellers. I think it means rather than priest.
Or better results from
better.
fortune. That's what I'm guessing. They get results from fortune tellers rather than getting results from the priest.
Well, okay, so that's one of two things. Okay, so we know that things like that, like fortune telling and black arts, all have a demonic basis to them. All right, so these are things that we are told both in the Old Testament and the New Testament that we are to avoid. Even the church fathers talk about the things that we could avoid. In fact, where is this is Basil's address. And in Saint Basil's address to young men on the right use of literature, at the very end, he talks about least of all shall we listen to them when they tell us of their gods, especially when they represent them among themselves in terms of the words and deeds. And so they're talking about the spiritualists, and they weren't, well, I guess they were telling the fortunes, and astrologers and all of that. So we even have from the Holy Fathers telling us that these are things that we avoid because there is a demonic connection there. The other, more scientific, is that many times this is the power of persuasion. Okay, you hear something, right? Like a horoscope, right? You read the horoscope and then you fit your day for that horoscope. And then you start looking for things that make it fit. So you convince yourself that what they've said is actually true. And my yaya, having been what we call a kafedzu, which is the cup reader. She used to read the cups. And so she let me in on the secret of how that all is. And she basically just had conversations with them and then repeated back to them what they had said. But through the power of persuasion and thinking that my yaya actually knew things, they granted her a power that she did not possess, and she knew that she didn't possess. So we have to look at those two aspects, and this is why we're warned to stay away from those types of things: fortune tellers, astrology, horoscopes, all of those, because of those two reasons, both from a spiritual point of view and from a practical scientific point of view.
Sandeman 1 asks this question: does the Orthodox Church ever do the liturgy in an instructional format like the Western instructional Mass?
Well, that's kind of what the teaching liturgy.
You may not have been here from the beginning of the show.
Yeah, okay. So
just reiterate.
Yeah, so what I typically do once a year that I learned from a priest friend of mine is I do something that's called a teaching liturgy. And the teaching liturgy is where we stop at key points during the liturgy and we discuss what it is that we're doing. So I'll begin by reciting the Great Litany. I'll stop after the last verse of the Great Litany and then explain what is it that I just said. Then we'll move to the antiphons. Then I'll stop at the antiphons and I'll explain where the antiphons came from, why they're there, and what their purpose is. So so at least and I know some other priests do this, usually on a yearly basis, we do what's called a teaching liturgy where we stop at certain points.
And so we're going to be doing it this Sunday, part 1.
And then next Sunday, part 2.
Yes.
All right. Jack says, "Hi, Father. Protestants often say there are examples of icons in the Old Testament. Gosh, I can't talk today. Like in the Old Testament, like Ark of the Lord, but not in the New Testament, and therefore they cannot accept our icons. How should we answer to this?"
So
they're saying that the Old Testament shows examples of icons, but the New Testament has nothing about it, so they do not accept iconography.
So we have to read the Bible in two parts then. So we can't read the Bible as a whole. we have to, everything that is said in the Old Testament must be repeated in the New Testament, and then vice versa. So we can't read the Bible as a whole. I guess that's where I'm confused, is, there is examples of iconography that is given in the Old Testament, which our listener just mentioned. Okay, but where was the need in what the purpose of the New Testament was for us to talk about icons, right? So, the purpose was to tell us who Jesus Christ was, why he came, the work that he did, and of his death and his resurrection. Okay, so I don't see what the point of talking about an icon in those would have been to our salvation. Later on, after the post-biblical, all right, or the apostolic times, that's where we see now an introduction into the arts that the apostles and their not predecessor. What's the opposite of predecessor? Their successors. Mm-hmm. Their successors said that we want to maintain a history of what it is that Jesus Christ taught. And so we'll do that through pictures, and the Greek word for that is ikona. And so this now starts this idea of iconography. But within the New Testament, they all existed. Jesus Christ was there. The apostles were there. What are we going to make icons of? So in that sense, it's the church, the early church, responding to recording the history of what it is that of the events of Jesus's life, and then of the saints as we move forward in the apostles.
Now, before we get to Shaylee's question, a couple of shout-outs, comments, and feedback. Will says, good evening. Diane says that Ted, her husband, says, this is in reference to kissing the icons, don't you kiss the people you love?
Yes, and as an image of God, right? We would certainly kiss, right?
And Sentiman 1 says Floridians refer to natural disasters as the paradise tax. That's accurate.
Okay, I like that. All right.
I love this name. Electric Camel Analytics says, greetings, lovely people. And Nature's Order says, Judges 11 through 12. I'm going to mispronounce this. I've always mispronounced this. Jephthah is the example of how not to take an oath in God's name.
Oh, no.
I assume you're looking up Judges?
Yes. Okay.
Tonight is the night of looking up. I don't think we've ever looked up that many.
Judges, right?
Yes.
Should be up here. Oh, Judges, after Joshua. See, we should know all this, right? You were Baptist before. You should know all this. You know right where it is.
Well, I did. You didn't ask. I was going to help you.
All right. Judges what?
11 through 12. But it might be referring to a story.
Oh, right.
Judges 11, 12.
11, right? The messengers. Here it is. 28. The Spirit of the Lord came upon Jephthah as he passed through Gilead. And Jephthah made a vow to the Lord and said, if you deliver the sons of Ammon into thy hands, then it shall be that whoever comes first out of the doors of my house to meet when I return, he shall be the Lord's, and I'll offer him up. So Jephthah advanced towards the sons of Ammon to fight against them, and the Lord delivered them into his hand. And he struck them from Aror until he came to Aron, 20 cities, and thus the sons. I guess.
But did he fulfill that oath?
And if you deliver the sons of Ammon into my hands, okay, and so, and the Lord delivered them into his hand. So then he says, then it shall be that whoever comes out of the doors of my house to meet me when I return in peace from this shall be the Lord's. Oh, okay.
Would you like to maybe get back to this another time?
Right. Okay. So I just wanted to read. He just was saying an example, but I was trying to find out how that example, how he meant that example.
All right. So we can come back to that.
Oh, so here, and I called you, but you did not deliver me from their hands. So when I saw that you were not a savior, I put my life in the hands that passed on the sons, and the Lord delivered them into my hands. And why did you come to fight? So he turns on the Lord. Yes. Okay. Got it. All right. I'm good.
All right. From Shaley, good evening. Why was the East and West during the Roman Empire that they were once bilingual, knowing Latin and Greek, but then shifted between cultural differences and not knowing both languages?
Well, I mean, I don't have the exact history there, but again, as people separate, okay, and trading begins to lessen, and we have the rise of the Ottoman Empire that continues to separate the two, the more common language in the Byzantine Empire was Greek, and the more common language was Latin in the West. So when there was common trade and free flow trade between the two, then yes, we spoke both those languages. But with the separation and the dwindling contact, then the language that you speak more commonly is the language that you're going to prefer. I would liken it to, a person, let's say like myself, who grows up bilingual. So when I'm around both cultures, then both of my languages become fluent. So I can speak Greek because I'm speaking on a daily basis, and I can speak English because I'm speaking that on a daily basis. If I leave from here and I go to a place like Greece, okay, and I stay there for an extended period of time, okay, then my English skills will begin to deteriorate. I see that with our own parishioners here and in my last parish, that the more they were born and raised and went to school in Greece, but after 30 years of being here, they have difficulty remembering what some of the Greek words are, just because they're not around that level of Greek. They speak more Greeklish than they speak Greek. And so they forget a lot of those words. So I see it here happening over the span of 30 years. So certainly you can see that transpiring over the course of hundreds of years.
Mm-hmm. All right. Jack says, hello. If a person makes a video game and it's just for fun to waste millions of people's time with ads, or billions of hours combined wasted instead of for doing something more productive, is that a sin? Well,
the very first thing that comes to mind is the parable of the talents, and what Christ is asking us to do in the parable of the talents is to use our talents productively. Okay, and so when we spend an inordinate amount of time working on something that really has no purpose, then we are like that servant that buries their talent in the sand, because we're not using it to the advantage of mankind, of what is the pursuit of knowledge and the pursuit of assisting and easing man's burden. So I would see that, although innocent sounding, it becomes the story of the man who buries his talent.
And you're referring to the people who are wasting away their time playing the video games?
Well, I'm referring to both, because here's somebody that has the knowledge and capability to develop applications, but rather than work on applications that are beneficial and helpful, we're spending our time on an application that really doesn't advance us in any way.
But can't that apply to any form of entertainment? Or how about your local winemaker or craft brewery? I mean, they're not doing anything to benefit mankind, but they're giving mankind a bit of a reprieve. In the same way, video games. The person who's making the video game is not responsible if somebody else is throwing away their lives playing it because they're not using with moderation. So, I mean, isn't the creating or manufacturing a form of entertainment a little bit beneficial to give a little bit of a reprieve in somebody's life to give them balance?
I mean, I see what you're saying there, but at the same time, we do have, if we've been given a talent, then we should use that talent. I don't know if I would say that making wine is useless. I mean, it does. I mean, yes, can it be abused by people? Yeah, of course it can be abused. All right. But wine is something that does complement a meal, and it is for man's enjoyment. We use it for Holy Communion. So I'm saying that if you have those talents, then it is better served if we are using it to some beneficial goal. So I can see what you're saying is that, okay, you know what? There is some things that I want. There is some apps that I'd like to design, but you know what? I've got this app that, you know what? It just kills a little bit of time. I think it's fun. So, and in that case, all right, fine. I built an app. Some people have some fun with it. They enjoy it. But that shouldn't be the course of my life's work.
I don't think you understand video games. So, yeah, if somebody can design or animate a video game, doesn't mean that they can create an app. That's a very specific talent.
Okay, so a video game also. All right, so if we're just going to talk about video games, all right, then I think that, not I think, but from an Orthodox perspective, that video game designer should be designing things that actually promote the welfare of man. Okay, so if they're mindless, or they have or they have an alternate purpose, like they focus on death and things like that, then I think that's problematic.
Well, you've gone a whole that nothing about death was mentioned. They just wanted to know if a person makes a video game, and is it a sin to have made the video game, or is the sin on the part of the person who is spending too much time doing it? Some people are probably, I don't know everybody, but I imagine there are some people that can play a game for a little bit and put it away. I mean, how is that any different than people who spend a lot of time watching things like American Greed or Why Planes Crash or
you couldn't
things
possibly be talking
where
about
they
me.
could be up, maybe like we didn't go for a walk the other day, and it's like, gee, we should have turned off the TV and gone for a walk. So is the sin on the part of the person that created the game, or is the sin on the person who is?
Yes, all right. So fine. The bigger part of the sin is on the person who is misusing the technology. Yes, I would agree with that. Okay.
And this is an example of how he has an unchanging character, and yet we were able to sway him.
Yes. Well, you just have to put it in the right perspective. But they weren't talking about what kind of the games it was. They didn't say they were death games or anything. It was just, I mean, I play what's it called on my phone, cryptograms and things like that.
I play the word games, but the word games help my vocabulary. See, that's why I think.
Do you know Father Xaros from Tarpon Springs?
I know of Father Jaros.
Jaros, sorry. Yeah.
Yes, very well.
This was the priest on the beach.
Oh,
that was the priest on the beach. Okay,
we'll have to call him.
All right, Paraclesi on the beach. Like I said, I can picture Father Athanasios doing that.
Yes. Wow. Okay. So PF Stats remarks that your answer on cremation versus burial does not make sense, since the purpose of the burial is to come back. So if it does not matter how one died, if intentional or not, then one goes against the reason.
No, that's the whole point, intentional or not. So Paul tells us that the body belongs to the whole. Do you not know that your body is the property of the Holy Spirit? Okay, so that means that I don't have a decision over what happens with my body. So it does boil down to a willful decision to go against the teachings of the church. Okay, There is nothing in the Bible, Old or New Testament, that shows that cremation is a respectable way to honor the dead. Yes, there are many cultures that do use that method, but Christianity and Judaism do not use that method in a honorable way. They only use it as a desecration. Okay, so from that standpoint, we are making a conscious decision that I wish to have my body disposed.
Cremated?
No, to be processed, or what I want to done with my body. My wish is that the body is taken care of in a manner that is in line with my faith, and that I will not go against the will of my faith. When I cremate, I am going against the will of my faith. Now, that's Orthodox faith. The Protestant faith has said that, yes, you can cremate. All right. Now, we don't agree with their theology on that. All right. Because of the reasons I gave you, St. Paul and all of that. So the cremation is all about the intentional use of your will.
Okay.
From an Orthodox perspective.
All right. Greek 70s comments, are you saying God practices favoritism? And I'm not sure what he's referring to, or is that directed at somebody?
I think this may have to do with the natural disasters and living, because there was a bit of a debate about it right before.
Well, I mean, from the Old Testament, God does favor his people. Okay, so God rescues them from Pharaoh. He allows Pharaoh's army to be destroyed. So he does favor. The people of Israel. Now, when we have Jesus Christ come as the Son of God, okay, now God the Father says, all now are included. Go and baptize all nations and bring them to me. So what Jesus does is he opens up salvation not just for the favored nation of God, which is the Israelites, the Jewish people, but now Jesus opens it up for now all people through his death and resurrection.
See, this connects to a question that was asked much later, if I may be so bold. WS says, with about 1 million stars to get attention, that is not orthodox to say that the Jewish people are the favored or chosen people of God. Now, which Christ took it away from them, people that follow Christ are chosen, as the church says officially.
Well, Jesus talks many times about the fact, do you not know that you are the branch grafted on from the vine? I mean, he talks about he talks about the fact that I did not come to abolish the law. I'm trying to think of other lines, because throughout the New Testament, Jesus never condemns the Jewish faith. He argues against the abuses that were being done by the Jewish leaders and the Jewish priests, but we don't see him in any way saying, I have come to replace Judaism with something new. In fact, he says, anybody who even changes one iota of the law, let him be punished. Okay?
But I guess it just leads to a general confusion. With the idea, and I'm seeing this in the comments too.
Right.
How can it exist at the same time that they are the chosen people, and you can only get to heaven through Jesus? Because that's not compatible.
Well, we're saying that all will come before Jesus. Okay, so the Jews, the Islam, the Buddhists, all of them will come before Jesus, but Jesus is the judge. At the day of judgment. They will all come before. Now, what Christ's judgment is, okay, that we'll say we don't know. Christ says, I am the judge, all will come before me. He doesn't say, if you're Jewish, you're not passing. He just says, I am the judge. And he will make that determination. Now, if that determination is guided by, Israel's favored nation status in the Old Testament of God, that's not for necessary us to know. All we know is that all will pass before Christ, and he is the judge. How he's going to judge is unknown to us.
All right. Since we're getting close on time, I'm going to skip some. Sorry, those who are being skipped, but I want to get some new people in. John Mascola says, sorry I'm late. I have a question. What is your opinion of the Western Rite Orthodox?
Did you do your research?
Yeah, so I did. I did. Some, and I have looked at that, and there is something called the Ancient Rite Orthodox Catholic something, and what it is it's a compilation album of elements of Orthodoxy and elements of Catholicism. So, and then there's a little bit of Protestantism kind of thrown in there with some of the hymns and all that. So it is not Orthodoxy in the sense that we know Orthodoxy. It is not Catholicism in the way that we understand Roman Catholicism, and it is not Protestantism. Okay, so it seems to be this blend that is trying to mix all three. And at least some of the websites that I've seen is that it is also the church that invites all to participate in the distribution of Holy Communion. So whereas the Orthodox and Catholic Church, there would be certain restrictions in terms of lifestyle, who can approach the cup. Those who are divorced, those who are having relationships outside of marriage, those who are homosexual. So there's restrictions on that. From what I've seen from the Western Rite Church, those restrictions are not necessarily in place.
All right.
A couple of shout outs real quick. Annie Oakley says that she's witnessed one of your teaching liturgies.
Oh, okay.
And she loved it, and that was the day that she was hooked on Annunciation.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, thank you very much for that. I appreciate that.
And the Recce reporter says, hello, everyone. Hello, Recce. I'm being trained to be a reader and chanter at my local Greek parish.
Trained, I like
in
that.
Rural Ohio.
Very nice that you actually have somebody training you. That's very, I need to, that would be, we have, some of our chanters are I should say chanters, but our chanter, Lori, is our trainer for those who are experiencing Orthodoxy and chanting now.
Mm-hmm. Yes. All right. Abject fool. Objective truth must be a person, as only a person can provide a telos or prescriptive purpose. Can it be said that the evil one becomes the truth of the world to Adam and Eve?
So Jesus Christ clearly says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. So the first part of the statement we as Orthodox would agree with, because Christ himself, the living word, has told us that he is the truth. So the truth is exemplified through a personhood. Okay. The second part of that, I don't agree with, because it is allowing another kind of truth. There is only a truth, all right? Everything else has to be a falsehood. So they were led astray by a falsehood, but we would not say that this is another truth they were led. There is, as you said in the beginning, there is only one truth, and that's a living truth. Anything preached other than that has to be a lie, because we as Orthodox do not believe in relative truth, meaning that the truth is based on how I individually interpret that. And so because it's connected to a person, it is a singular truth. And so they were led astray by a lie, a deception, a perversion of the truth.
What about hashtag my truth?
Hashtag my truth. That's right.
I was reading some text. I don't know if you asked this, but I want to make sure it's asked by Jalopy Ranch.
I did not.
Okay.
No.
Who says they are undecided between the Church of Christ or Eastern Orthodox.
Oh.
Give Jalopy some persuasion, Father.
Yes. Is that the UCC? Universal Church of Christ. When it says Church of Christ, that's what I think of. I think of UCC. Okay. So the answer to that question is orthodoxy. There is no place else that you will find the fullness of who God is except through orthodoxy. And that includes the Catholic Church, okay? Because there are, from the Orthodox perspective, there are misinterpretations within the Catholic Church also, in terms of, and one of the ones that comes to mind right away is the understanding of original sin and the inheritance of original sin and a confusion of how that came about. The Immaculate Conception of the Virgin Mary. So so typically the problem that the Orthodox Church has with the Catholic Church, besides the idea of the Pope being head of a universal church, is the fact that dogmas were created within the Catholic Church that from an Orthodox perspective were built on misunderstandings of Scripture.
We have a super chat, but Pet Rock Concert throws in A Journey of Fear and Joy is the book for the Church of Christ convert. So there is I'm not too familiar with the Church of Christ myself, but is there more of a fire and brimstone approach to Christianity?
No. It's if we're talking about the UCC, that is a fairly liberal arm of Christianity.
So it's the opposite.
It's the opposite.
It's too loose.
It's right. There is really no fire and brimstone there. It's a very, and I hate to use this term, it's a very accepting church because that sounds like Orthodoxy is not accepting. Okay, but it is less disciplined than the Orthodox Church. And
right.
discipline is important.
So the super chat from Miggs, who says, jumping in late today, I'm catching up. Why did Orthodox Christians and Catholics stop the agape meal? I have read the Coptics and the Ethiopians still do.
Actually, we see that. We see that in the Bible in Acts, and I'm looking for specifically where he talks about the abuses of the agape meal. Just give me 1 second here.
And for those of you who are wondering, agape, that's the Greek word love.
Yes.
No, I know. I'm helping out.
Well, he's concentrating,
yeah.
So I don't think he heard your question.
It was a statement.
Okay.
But I was giving him an opportunity to add on, it's like, yes, but love with this and that, Well, maybe you should, while you're looking it up, Father, maybe you can define a little bit of what an agape meal is before we say why we don't do it.
Okay.
That's a cue, Father.
That's a cue. All right, here we go. All right. Let's see here.
He's focusing. It's
all right. Life of the Church. Okay. Okay. So in Acts chapter 2, it discusses the life of the early church. And they continued steadfastly in the apostles' doctrine and fellowship, in the breaking of bread and in prayers. And then fear came upon the souls, and many wonders and signs were done. So they continued daily with one accord in the temple, breaking bread from the house. They ate their food with gladness and simplicity of heart, praising God and having favor with all the people. So that's a description. And in fact, can you look up Acts 2:46?
In 193 episodes, I don't think we've ever looked up this many things in the Bible. Which is shocking for a show called Orthodoxy Questions.
You said 246? Is that what you said?
Acts chapter 2:46. And then here, 10:20.
I have it.
Okay. And now, 46.
Right here. Right here. Oh,
yeah,
in the Greek.
I was thinking that in the Greek, with gladness they would have talked about agape, but they say agaliasi, but enjoying with joy, and with aphilotiti, with brotherhood, kardias, with heartily brotherly love. So that in Acts is the description of the agape meal. So you went into a home, you broke bread, you sang hymns, you enjoyed it. By the time now Paul goes out into the different communities that he's preached to, he finds now abuses, all right? And so in Corinthians chapter 10, he talks about, for we, though many, are one bread and one body, we all partake of that one bread. Okay, you cannot drink from the cup of the Lord and the cup of demons. You cannot partake of the Lord's table and the table of demons. So he's reporting now these abuses by the Corinthians. Later on, 23, for I received from the Lord that which I delivered to you, that the Lord Jesus, on the same night took bread and, okay. Therefore, whoever eats of this bread, drinks of this cup, in an unworthy manner will be guilty of the body and blood of the Lord. For he who eats and drinks in an unworthy manner eats and drinks judgment. For this reason, this is why you are sick and weak, and many of you sleep. For when we were judged, we were chastened by the Lord. So here in Acts, in the very early church, the earliest, the apostolic time, he's giving the descriptions of how they conducted an agape meal. Later on in Corinthians, he's seeing abuses happening where people are getting drunk at these, and they're turning them into more Roman orgies than what they're supposed to be, and St. Paul is chastising them for that.
As somebody mentioned later on, the comments say different kind of love.
Yes, different kind. Yes, different. Yes, very good.
All right. The next question is from Shabbat. I've been reflecting on the nature of the afterlife, the concept of annihilationism versus eternal punishment versus universalism. Does the Orthodox guidance on this any early fathers or saints? So was there any Orthodox guidance on that? On the nature of the afterlife?
Yes. And again, this is a hold up.
Well, I should point out while you're looking that up, we do have a link in this video description to a resource page where there are a couple of articles about the nature of heaven and hell.
Yes, and in fact, that's exactly what I'm going to do here. If you go to our website under the Education tab and under Resources, you'll go there and you will see, just as Demos mentioned, you'll see one on heaven and hell. So when we talk about the afterlife here, okay, there were traditionally 4 teachings. Okay, the one which is the most common, that is preached in most Protestant churches, is the place of eternal judgment is it's a place of eternal judgment and torment and anguish, and this is the traditional lake of fire. All right. The second one, and these were each preached by different fathers of the church. All right. The second one was a temporary place of torment and then a final annihilation, meaning that you received punishment and then you went into non-existence. Okay. The third one is everybody gets saved. This is the classic Gospel of Thomas. Jesus reveals the secret to the Apostle Thomas and said, the truth is everybody gets saved, so don't worry about it. And the last one is the most popular common Orthodox interpretation is that hell is eternal separation from God. So we do not believe that the soul is annihilated. It exists for all time. But at the same time, it willfully separates itself from God. So when we describe God as fire, fire has two aspects to it. Fire can be good. Fire good. Okay. That was Saturday Night Live, right? Okay, I just had to remember that because I always see Phil Hartman.
Oh, it's actually fire. No, it's actually fire bad.
That's right. He was Frankenstein. Fire bad. Okay, I'll use that for the next one. So fire is good because it provides us warmth. All right, but at the same time, fire bad because we separate ourselves. So we see God as flame and punishment. Hence, this lake of eternal fire. Now, the whole full article is on our website.
Now, there is a follow-up from Abject Fool, another awesome name. Earlier, he was asking about objective truth. This is his follow-up. Yes, the evil one is false. I guess I'm trying to figure out how the evil one tries to take the role of God. In today's world, there are many people who try to take this role of God in their own life.
When take this role of God
being God, yeah.
Well, and this is and this is why Jesus Christ says to Martha, one thing is needful, and that one thing that is needful is the belief in who Jesus Christ as the Son of God is. When we depart from that, we have to have a replacement. If we don't have Jesus Christ, then we need a replacement. That replacement becomes our God, whether that's work or whether that's pornography or whether that's gambling or whether it's drinking, but we will replace God with something. So, and the problem with that is that we then become the core, we become the center, and we decide what that truth is. So in that sense, when Jesus says only one thing is needful, he's talking about the fact that I am the thing that is needful, meaning him, meaning belief in him. And that is why he says, I am the truth, because it's a living truth that can't be relativized. But we, as our own immortal being, we try to relativize it by being by finding it in some other fashion.
Yeah, I'd even warn, and we're talking about the evil one and so forth. I'd be wary of those who handpicks and redirects truth to lead to something that is false.
That is false. Yes, absolutely. Right. Good point.
All right.
That happens once in a while.
Every once, yes. And that's a constant challenge for all of us. We're always being pulled by Satan and his demons to be pulled away from Christ and to find other things. We get ourselves interested in work, under the guise of I'm building my career and that's what's important, or sports becomes really important. So, when I hear people say, well, Father, I just don't understand why, I don't enjoy coming to church anymore. It's because you have found another God. Okay.
Politics is a great example.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. I think I got all of the new ones. Maybe did I miss one?
No, I think we managed to get every new. We definitely skipped a few questions tonight, but I think that's starting to become unavoidable.
Yeah. We.
So and I think we're a little bit over our time, so we're gonna draw it to a close. But I did want to just jump in and say thank you to all those 18,000 plus.
Yes.
That was awesome. That's
viewers
awesome.
And followers. Thank you for your support and thank you for helping this grow. At this rate, I think we're gonna hit 20,000 about the same time as our 200th episode.
Even though that's not what it's about.
Even though that's not what it's about,
mm-hmm.
But we're expanding our digital community, and the more people that follow, the more people that this kind of material will be exposed to. So,
well, I will say that as we are evolving this show, you guys are really giving me a workout here because, like you said today, I mean, how many times have we had to open scripture today, right? I mean,
every week it's something different. Every week it's I'm still shocked, and I'm starting to sound like a broken record. For those of you who know what records still are,
yes,
I had this conversation with somebody earlier. I just used that phrase, and I didn't know what I was talking about.
Oh,
my
okay.
gosh,
Nice.
oh my gosh! But not to sound like a broken record, but there isn't a single week that passes where we don't get completely new questions.
Yeah, yeah. So and that's really good. And like I said, this show is not just about you all, but it's about the fact that you ask these really in-depth questions that, you know, after the show I have to sit down and take time and, you know, and really see what are some of the more complete answers to the questions that you've asked. And
so with that said, we got a very, very last minute super chat from Diane L, who says, "How about a million? A million? I would, What about 2 million? Or Annunciation Orthodox Church Road to a Million. There we go.
The road to a million. Homie, I couldn't. I can't even fathom that. I mean, that'd be incredible.
You couldn't fathom 1,000.
Yeah, I couldn't fathom 100. You know, when I was like, hey, 100. Wow, let's see if we can go with that. So yes, Diane, if we can get even
500,000.
500,000, right? Okay. So.
Well, the best thing everybody can do for us is to like, share, subscribe, send this video to somebody that may benefit from it.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
We've done a different assortment of videos. We have the Sunday school videos. If somebody needs a smile on their face, we try to make those funny. We go by edutainment. We try to make it a good time while informing everybody as best as we can.
That's right, and that's why I think we should add more of my singing to the show.
And that's when our channel dies. So.
Well, and lastly, for those who don't know, a belated happy birthday, because it was your birthday last Sunday.
Oh, thank you. Mm-hmm. So,
see, you notice I said belated happy birthday because everybody says happy belated birthday, and it's like birthdays don't become belated because they always come when they come. So right. It's belated happy birthday wishes.
Well, I should point out we hit 18,000 Sunday night.
Oh, so that was your birthday.
That was your birthday present.
Oh, that was my birthday present. Yes. Wow, that kind of worked out pretty cool. All right, very good. So, well, again, thank you everybody for tonight, and we will be seeing y'all soon, huh?
Yes, join us this Sunday for our teaching liturgy. It'll be part 1. And then part 2 will be the following Sunday. And then keep an eye out. We'll have both parts connected and released as a separate video. But definitely join. It'll be a bit of a longer service, but I think you'll all get a real kick out of it.
And remember, the text is on our website, and you can download that.
And in the description of the video.
And the description of the videos. That's correct.
All right. Have a good night, everyone.
Have a good night. Thanks.